Welcome to Timmy Talks Finance. Today we're going to discuss the state of the market. Where are we right now in the grand scheme of things? Okay, so this is Fartcoin, which is what some people would say an absurd or obnoxious meme coin, but it really is showing us the path here to where we are on all risk assets. So here's a chart. Here's a Wall Street cheat sheet. Pretty simple. Blow off top. Retrace almost the entire move. Capitulation, depression, a huge basing area, and a rally out of the basing area. Disbelief. This is where we are at. We are currently in the disbelief rally. How do we know that? Well, quite simply, bear market rallies are sharp, they are quick, they are vicious. So, as you can see, none of those things happened. We had a huge basing area, and we had slow stair-step patterns up. This is what you want to see in a disbelief rally, okay? Because the bull traps, the quick moves in a bear market or a bear move are going to be sharp and quick. So if you see the move, straight down, straight back up, and then finally straight back down. Okay, you don't see this slow stair-stepping pattern up and up and up and up. This is the disbelief rally. So that's where we are with risk assets. Okay, and not all risk assets look like this. Fartcoin, I'm showing you, is just it has the cleanest chart to show where we are and where the market's going to move forward from here. Okay, so if that's where risk assets are, where are safe haven assets? Well, quite simply, let's look at gold. Okay, gold has been on a tear, and it has gone straight up, straight parabolic. Okay, if you look at this on the weekly, you can see we have gone straight up. We had a huge basing area before our parabolic rally. These are kind of the slow, normal moves that can build upon each other. It slowly starts getting more and more exponential till eventually it becomes far too top heavy to sustain, and we enter a new bear market. So as you can see, for safe haven assets, we just came out of this euphoria peak where people were euphoric about gold. People are fleeing the dollar. They were fleeing treasuries. They were fleeing United States tech stocks. They were fleeing meme coins, crypto currencies, and boom. We had a parabolic rally, and what comes next is what you just saw on Fartcoin, which is a huge bear market. Now, Fartcoin is faster moving than gold. Gold is going to take years to recover. Last time something like this happened was in March of 2020. Not March of 2020, August of 2020, right here. We had this huge parabolic move, blow off top. What was Peter Schiff saying at the time? What were other gold bulls saying at the time? This is just the start. Because we were coming out of COVID. We're still in COVID. The whole economy was shut down, and they were printing money. Interest rates, they were bringing them down to zero. QE, massive money printing, massive programs to give out money to the people. This was the most bullish time for gold, because what looked like the whole business cycle was going to collapse upon itself. We were going to have extreme inflation, and there was no way for the central banks to pivot out of it. That was the narrative. Okay? And when that narrative died, so did gold. And gold is at the same point now where we had mass panic. Okay, we didn't have an economy shut down, but what we do have is massive tariffs. We have a collapsing of the dollar. We have people fleeing out of the United States, fleeing out of the dollar into what they refer to as the BRICS countries and non-US countries, countries that hold a lot of gold, countries that are not going to be buying a lot of treasuries. Okay, because Russia is not going to be buying treasuries anymore, ever again. But they are going to be buying gold. So as this narrative got really loud, we had a blow off top. Okay, so where does that leave everything else? Okay, we just looked at gold, which is the ultimate safe haven. You can hold it physically. No one can take it from you easily. And they can't print more of it. So somewhere in between both gold and Fartcoin is Bitcoin. Okay. Now, Bitcoin is somewhere in between gold and Fartcoin. Now, from here, from this point on, okay, Bitcoin is not going to follow gold down to the depths. It's going to follow Fartcoin upwards. So, since Bitcoin is a little bit more like Fartcoin than gold, it's going to behave a little bit more like Fartcoin than gold. But it's not just completely Fartcoin, and it's not gold. It's a risk-on asset with safe haven attributes. It's a mix. So what do we see here in Bitcoin? We saw that we had to move down just like Fartcoin. However, we're still in a longer bullish trend. And so long as Fartcoin continues to move, Bitcoin's going to move with it. Where is the money going to come from? Quite simply, people are going to be leaving out of gold, going into crypto. They're going to be selling their safe haven assets, buying their risk-on assets. More risky stuff is going to move faster, like Fartcoin. And somewhere in the middle, Bitcoin is going to move as well. All right, so where does that leave the SPY? Okay, now the SPY, not a safe haven asset. However, it's not a complete risk-on asset like Fartcoin. It's like Bitcoin. It's somewhere in the middle, but it's a little bit more complicated because it's more tied to the United States. But same thing that happened to the risk assets, where they came down sharply and they're based back up. What's going to happen to the SPY? So right here, the bottom's in. Okay, it's easy to see that the bottom's in. We have huge volume. Okay, on the weekly. You have not seen this volume since 2020. January of 2020. Over 3 years. We have not seen such volume on the weekly. That is capitulation. People panic sold these assets. They thought U.S. exceptionalism is dead. They thought that gold is the new safe haven to go to. But quite simply, it's not. Okay? And look what it did. Okay? We bounced right off the high of January 2022. Where else do you see this? Okay? Where else you saw this was Bitcoin. Let's go back. Okay? We came down and we hit the previous top of March of 2024. The reason why it looks so similar, quite simply, they are similar assets. They are different, but in this way, risk on, risk off, they are hybrid. They are partially risk off, partially risk on. Stocks still create value, companies are still making money, and they are still innovating. The economy is still full of people working. However, as stocks, they have inherent risks. They have the risks of the tariffs. They have the risks of war, whether it's a kinetic war or a trade war. They have risks. They are a hybrid asset. So where does that leave the NASDAQ? Well, NASDAQ everything's a spectrum. It's more risk on than the SPY. It's less risk on than Fartcoin. So somewhere in the middle. Okay, so where does that leave silver? Unfortunately, it leaves silver. It leaves silver with it's going to follow gold. It's going to follow gold down. And what could happen here is you could see some silver outperformance of gold, where the gold to silver ratio goes down. That would make sense considering how much the gold and silver ratio has gone up during this move. But unfortunately, if gold's in a bear market, silver will continue the bear market with gold. It will just outperform gold while that gold silver ratio comes back down. Okay, so Ethereum. Wow. Okay, so Ethereum's got a lot going on with it. It's more risk on than Bitcoin, less risk on than Fartcoin. However, it has having an identity crisis. It's in a special circumstance where, yes, it's going to go up with Bitcoin. It's going to go up with Fartcoin. It's going to go up with this SPY in the NASDAQ. However, it's having bad sentiment because of its identity crisis, where Solana seems to be eating its lunch. Will that happen? Well, so far it has, and there's no way of knowing. But if you are holding Ethereum, just know two things. One, it's going to follow Bitcoin up. It's still going to go up with Bitcoin. And two, the reason why the price is so low is because the narrative is so bad. Right now, people are thinking that Ethereum is a dying chain. It's a dying coin. So if that narrative flips or even becomes a little bit less bearish, then Ethereum can still outperform and could even outperform Solana. Will it happen? Don't know. But just know that if you panic sell now, it's a little late. It's a little late to sell it. But if you are still too heavy on ETH, if ETH is your only holding, well, then you messed up by not being diversified. But it could be time to diversify a little bit out of it. Maybe you want to pick up some Solana. Maybe you want to pick up some Sui. Maybe you want to pick up some Fartcoin. Maybe you want to diversify a little bit. Not saying to sell the whole thing, but something to consider. Solana looks quite similar to Ethereum, doesn't it? Okay, we had the moves up, and then we had a sharp move down and made new lows. Okay, this is a bear trap right here. Bears slaughtered. Okay, people saw this. What was once resistance flipped into support. People saw that, came all the way up here, came all the way down, touching this support again, broke the support, closed below the support. Okay, and then the following week went below the previous week's close, which was also below the support. So this was a classic bear trap. I mean, if you were trading technical analysis, you would say, oh, we made a new low past the low of the previous weekly close, plus the week before that you closed below support. That's where people they start selling short, and they start getting out of their positions and they start panic selling. Okay, a false move comes after a false move comes a fast reversal. So what I expect to see here is that this is the low, and we're moving up from here. Okay, why do I say that? Just based on this false breakdown, and based on the fact that gold, which is a safe haven, just had a parabolic run up, and it's now coming back down, and that Fartcoin is right here in this disbelief rally, stair-stepping back up. Okay, so this is definitely time to start looking at going risk on. But if you're holding cash right now, what you're going to want to do is start picking the winners, okay? You can pick the laggards. The nice thing about the laggards is that if we have another drawdown, which I don't expect, but it's possible, the laggards will not crash as hard because they didn't move up as much, okay? Because if we do have a crash and you ape it all into SUI right now, and maybe I was wrong, we have one more dip, there's a lot of this move to retrace. We can easily come far below this low, okay? That's a huge move. I don't expect Ethereum to crash 50% or more like SUI can. But it's all a spectrum. How risk on is your asset? So there's merit to say that if you have a barbell approach, you have only the most risky assets and only the safest assets and nothing in the middle. But really, your friend here is going to be diversification and portfolio management. Now, nothing I say here is financial advice. I'm not telling you what to do because I don't know your portfolio. I don't know your personal situation. But what I can tell you is what I'm seeing personally and what I expect moving forward. One last asset I want to check on. This is a personal interest of mine. CRO. Okay. CRO looks terrible. But guess what looks terrible? What else looks terrible? Almost all the altcoins. And not the altcoins I just showed you. SUI, Fartcoin, those are some of the best coins this cycle. So obviously they're going to look better than CRO. But CRO is going to look similar to MakerDAO. It's going to look similar to Aave. It's going to look similar to Polygon. It's going to look similar to most altcoins. So most altcoins look like this. Okay. But what do you see here that's special? Okay. We have an uptrend. Higher high, higher high, higher high. Okay. Now, this low down here was a retest of the low back in January 2024. And now we just made a slightly higher low. So this is a long process. But the way a lot of these altcoins work is they pump very quickly for a very short amount of time. And if you don't catch the move, then you miss it. Most of the time they do nothing. But when they move, and they make up for all that time that they do nothing. So if you're looking for something more risk on, obviously smaller cap altcoins like CRO is going to continue to do well. That's what I have for you today. That's the state of the market, and that's what I see going forward. Like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell.